The wind howled against the ancient oak trees of Savannah, rattling the stained glass windows of the King estate as if warning the mistress of the house about the storm approaching her door. Inside, the parlor was a sanctuary of warmth, smelling faintly of beeswax and the old mahogany that lined the walls. Amara sat in her father's leather armchair, her hand resting gently on the curve of her belly. 7 months pregnant, she had begun to feel the weight of the future pressing against her ribs, a sensation that was both terrifying and miraculous. She touched the heavy iron skeleton key deep in the pocket of her wool cardigan, a small, cold reminder that while many people might walk through these doors, she alone held the power to lock them. The piece shattered with the groan of the heavy front hinges. A gust of rain swept into the foyer, dampening the Persian rug that had been in her family since the 1920s. Julian stood there, dripping wet, his handsome face pale and twitching with a nervousness Amara knew too well. He wasn't alone. Clinging to his arm was a woman who looked like she belonged on a magazine cover, not in a storm. Vanessa Clare. Her blonde hair was plastered to her cheeks, and her expensive designer coat was soaked through. But her eyes were sharp, scanning the grandeur of the hallway with a hunger that had nothing to do with shelter. Amara, Julian breathed, closing the door against the wind. He didn't move to kiss his wife. He stayed on the mat, creating a barrier. It's a disaster out there. Vanessa's apartment. The pipes burst. The whole building is flooding. She had nowhere else to go. Amara remained standing by the fireplace, the flames casting long shadows across her face. She knew about the flooding, just as she knew about the late-night board meetings that smelled of expensive perfume. But she said nothing. Silence, her father had taught her, was often louder than screaming. Vanessa stepped forward, shivering theatrically. She looked at Amara, standing there in her modest gray cardigan, her natural curls pulled back, her skin dark and rich against the pale cream of the walls. In Vanessa's world, a woman who looked like Amara, dressed simply in a house of this magnitude, could only be one thing. Oh, thank goodness, Vanessa sighed, peeling off her soggy trench coat. She didn't look Amara in the eye. She simply extended her arm, holding the wet garment out toward her. Be a dear and take this. And bring us some hot towels. I'm freezing to death. The silence in the room stretched thin, threatening to snap. Amara didn't move to take the coat. Her gaze shifted slowly to Julian. It was a look that offered him one last chance, a chance to be a husband, a chance to correct this stranger, a chance to say, "This is my wife, Amara King, the owner of this house." But Julian froze. He looked at Vanessa's expectant face, then at Amara's calm defiance. The cowardice in his eyes was heartbreaking. He was ashamed, not of his mistress, but of the complexity of explaining his black wife to a woman whose prejudice he had likely indulged to keep her happy. He gave a microscopic nod, a silent plea for Amara to play along, to swallow her pride so he wouldn't have to face a scene. Amara's heart hardened into something cold and unbreakable. She realized then that the man she married wasn't just weak, he was complicit. Without a word, she stepped forward and took the wet coat. It wasn't an act of submission. It was the gathering of evidence. Vanessa didn't even say thank you. She turned her back on Amara, walking further into the foyer, her heels clicking on the marble like gunfire. She looked around, ignoring the portraits of Amara's ancestors on the walls, seeing only the real estate value. Vanessa gazed up at the crystal chandelier, her voice dripping with entitlement. "What a charming old place," she murmured. "It just needs a mistress who knows how to make it truly shine." Amara is holding the key in her pocket, but she's also holding her temper, for now. If you are still here and loving this story, please comment the number 8 below. It tells us you're part of the Black King family. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell, because we are just getting started, and Amara has a lesson to teach that you won't forget. Thank you for watching and inspiring us to create more. Let's get back to the story. The aroma of sizzling shrimp and buttery grits filled the kitchen, a scent of southern comfort that usually brought warmth, but this morning, it brought war. Amara stood by the stove, stirring the creamy stone-ground grits slowly, just as her grandmother had taught her. It was more than breakfast. It was a ritual of heritage, a quiet assertion that this home was built on the foundations of her family's culture. She heard the click of heels before she saw them. Vanessa breezed into the kitchen, wearing a silk robe that Amara recognized from a boutique in Paris, paid for, no doubt, by Julian. Vanessa sniffed the air, her nose crinkling in immediate distaste. She didn't offer a good morning. Instead, she turned to Julian, who had followed her in, looking weary. "Oh God, Julian," Vanessa groaned, waving a hand in front of her face. "This smells so heavy. Can't we get something lighter? Like imported fruit or just tea? It smells like grease and poverty in here." Amara's hand tightened on the wooden spoon. The insult was precise and practiced. It wasn't just about the food, it was an attack on her history. She looked at Julian, waiting for him to defend the meal he had once claimed to love. Instead, Julian pushed his plate away, offering a weak, apologetic smile to his mistress. I'll order us something from the bistro downtown," he muttered. Amara said nothing. She simply turned off the stove. As she walked past the hallway to clear the table, Amara glanced at the family portrait in the hallway. Her father's eyes seemed to watch her, reminding her that patience is a trap best set slowly. The humiliation didn't end with breakfast. By late afternoon, Vanessa had decided to host an impromptu cocktail gathering to warm the house. She told Amara, with a sickly sweet smile, to wear something dark and simple, so as not to distract the guests. It was a command meant for a servant. Amara, playing the long game, donned a plain navy dress that made her look invisible against the dark wood of the parlor. She moved through the room with a silver tray, offering drinks to Vanessa's friends, women who laughed too loud and looked at everything with appraising eyes. When one of them asked about the hostess, Vanessa draped her arm around Julian and gestured vaguely toward Amara. "Oh, don't worry about the service," Vanessa chirped, her voice carrying across the room. "This is Amara. She's been with the house for years. Very loyal. She's practically part of the furniture." The guests offered Amara pitying, dismissive smiles, the kind reserved for the help. Amara lowered her eyes, not in submission, but to hide the fire burning within them. She moved to the side table to collect empty glasses, and that was when she saw it. Julian's jacket was draped over a chair, and a slip of paper had fluttered out of the pocket. Amara picked it up. It was a receipt for the diamond tennis bracelet glittering on Vanessa's wrist. The payment method didn't say Thorne Capital. It read, King Family Joint Trust. The breath trapped in her throat. He wasn't just cheating on her. He was robbing her family to adorn his mistress. The theft was the final straw. The sadness in Amara's heart evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. Standing in the shadows of the hallway, Amara heard Vanessa whisper, "The nursery has the best light. It will make a perfect studio once we get rid of the clutter." Silence is a heavy burden for a woman to carry, but for a mother protecting her child, it becomes a shield of steel. Amara sat on a secluded park bench in downtown Savannah, the collar of her coat turned up against the chill wind. She checked her watch, then dialed a number she hadn't used in months. "Judge King," she said when the line connected, her voice steady. "It's time." Minutes later, a silver sedan pulled up to the curb. Elias King stepped out, leaning on his cane not out of frailty, but out of style. At 65, the former federal judge still commanded the air around him. He sat beside his daughter, his eyes dark with a fury he barely held in check. "He stole from the trust," Elias said, handing her a thick manila folder. "The incorporation documents for Thorne Capital are all here. The clause is clear, Amara. One strike, and he's out. We can end this today." Amara took the file, smoothing her hand over the cover. "Not today, Papa," she said softly. "He thinks I am weak because I am quiet. He thinks my silence is permission. I need him to say it out loud. I need him to show the court exactly who he is." Elias looked at his daughter, the steel in her spine, the fire in her quiet gaze, and nodded with proud resignation. "Very well. But remember, a snake bites hardest when it's cornered." Amara returned to the mansion just as evening fell. The house was quiet. Vanessa was out spending Julian's money, leaving the master of the house alone in the library. Julian called for Amara, his voice trying for authority but landing somewhere near desperation. He stood behind the heavy oak desk, her grandfather's desk, looking at a stack of papers. "Amara," he began, not meeting her eyes. "I've been thinking. With the baby coming and everything going on, It's too stressful here. Vanessa and we have a connection. It's undeniable. He slid a check across the polished wood. I think it's best if you go visit your relatives in the country for a while. Let things cool down. Amara picked up the check. The amount was insulting. Barely enough to rent a small apartment for a few months. It was severance pay for a marriage. Julian cleared his throat, gaining confidence from her silence. He looked her up and down, his gaze lingering on her natural hair and her wool cardigan with open disdain. And maybe use this money to fix yourself up, he sneered, finally saying the quiet part out loud. You don't look like the wife of a CEO anymore. You look tired. It's better this way. We come from different worlds, Amara. You never really fit in mine. He pushed the separation papers toward her, the pen resting on top like a weapon. He thought he was evicting a dependent, discarding a burden. He had no idea he was signing his own death warrant. Amara took the papers, her voice dropping to a whisper that chilled the room. You are right, Julian. We come from very different worlds, and you are about to find out exactly which one you are standing in. Amara just delivered the ultimate warning, and Julian has no idea the storm he just unleashed. If you are still watching and finding value in this turning point, please comment the number 8 below to let me know you are ready for justice to be served. And if you haven't joined the Black King family yet, I highly recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell right now. You do not want to miss the courtroom showdown in the next chapter. Your support helps us continue creating great content that inspires you. Now let's continue. The fluorescent lights of the Chatham County Courthouse hummed with a sterile coldness, stripping away the shadows where lies usually hide. Amara sat alone at the defendant's table, her hands folded neatly on the dark wood, wearing a navy dress that commanded respect even in its simplicity. Across the aisle, Julian sat close to Vanessa, adjusting his silk tie with the arrogance of a man who believes he has already won. He glanced at the separation papers in his lawyer's hand, confident they were his ticket to freedom, unaware they were actually his confession. Your Honor, Julian's lawyer began, pacing before the bench. My client, Mr. Thorne, is the sole provider for the family. Miss King has been unemployed for years. She lacks the resources and the stability to maintain the marital home. We are asking for full possession of the estate and primary custody of the child upon birth, given the mother's inability to provide a suitable environment. Vanessa smirked from the front row, scrolling on her phone, barely suppressing a laugh. The insinuation was clear. A Black woman without a job couldn't possibly raise a Thorne heir or keep a historic mansion. Is the defense ready? Judge Anderson asked, his voice stern. The heavy double doors at the back of the room swung open. The sound was like a thunderclap. Elias King walked in, leaning on his silver-tipped cane, his presence filling the room with a gravity that made the air feel thin. He didn't walk to the gallery. He walked straight to the defense counsel's chair next to Amara. Julian chuckled nervously. Your Honor, this is irregular. Who is this? Judge Anderson didn't bang his gavel. Instead, he did something that made the entire room freeze. He stood up, buttoned his robe, and bowed his head respectfully. Welcome, Sir Elias. It is an honor to have you in my courtroom. Julian's jaw dropped. Vanessa stopped scrolling. They watched in confusion as the white judge deferred to the elderly Black man. Elias nodded, placing a single, thick file on the table. I am representing my daughter, Amara King, Elias said, his voice deep and resonant. And we are countersuing on the grounds of fraud, breach of contract, and trespassing. Trespassing? Julian sputtered. That's my house. I built Thorne Capital. You built nothing, Elias corrected calmly. He held up Exhibit A, a yellow document protected by plastic. The King Mansion has been held in the King Family Trust since 1920. My daughter is the sole beneficiary. He then lifted Exhibit B, and this is the founding charter of Thorne Capital. Clause 4, Section 1, the Bad Boy Clause. Any funding provided by the trust is revoked instantly upon proof of marital infidelity. The moment you moved your mistress into my daughter's home, you stripped yourself of your voting rights. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. The color drained from Julian's face as the reality crashed down on him. He wasn't the king of the castle. He was a guest who had overstayed his welcome. Judge Anderson looked over his glasses at Julian, his expression withering. Mr. Thorne, It appears you are trying to evict your landlord from her own property. And based on these documents, you are currently trespassing. Amara turned her head slowly to look at Julian. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just stared at him with the terrifying calm of a woman who had warned him and whom he had chosen not to hear. Julian turned desperately to Vanessa for support, but he saw the exact moment the love in her eyes died, replaced instantly by the cold calculation of a woman realizing the gold mine was empty. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets of Savannah glistening like spilled diamonds, but for Julian Thorne, the storm was just beginning. He stumbled out of the courthouse doors, blinking in the harsh afternoon sunlight, his mind still reeling from the judge's decree. He looked around for the one person he thought would stand by him, only to see Vanessa hailing a taxi with frantic urgency, her heels clicking impatiently against the pavement. "Vanessa," Julian called out, jogging down the steps, his dignity forgotten. "Wait, we can fix this. It's just a setback. I can start over." Vanessa spun around, her face twisted in a mask of sneering disappointment. The charm was gone, peeled away like cheap paint. "Start over with what, Julian?" she snapped, her voice drawing stares from passers-by. "You don't have the company. You don't have the house. You don't even have a credit card that works anymore." She opened the cab door, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "I don't date failures, Julian. And I certainly don't date poor men." With a slam of the door, she was gone, leaving him stranded on the curb, a man who had traded a diamond for a piece of glass, only to watch the glass shatter. Panic set in. He heard Amara's whisper in his head again. "You will find out which world you are standing in." He was standing in the cold one now. Driven by a primal need for shelter, he hailed his own cab and raced back to the King Mansion. He told himself Amara would listen. She was soft. She was kind. She would never throw the father of her child onto the street. But when he arrived, the heavy oak front door was unyielding. He jammed his key into the lock, twisting it frantically, but the tumbler didn't budge. The locks had been changed. He pounded on the wood, shouting her name, his desperation echoing through the quiet neighborhood. "You won't get in that way," a calm voice said. Julian spun around. Amara was standing at the Iron Garden gate, flanked by 2 private security guards. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was holding a cardboard box. She placed it on the sidewalk next to him. It contained his clothes, his watch, and a few personal items. Nothing else. "Amara, please," Julian begged, reaching for her hand through the bars of the gate. "I did it for us. I built that company for our future. I just got lost along the way. You know me. I'm still your husband." Amara took a step back, out of his reach. Her face was devoid of anger, which frightened him more than rage ever could. "No, Julian," she said softly, her voice carrying over the rustle of the magnolia leaves. "You didn't do it for us. You did it because you thought I was small. You thought because I was quiet, I was weak. You forgot that roots grow deep in the dark." She signaled to the guards. There would be no more discussion. No dramatic fight. Just the end. As the heavy iron gates swung shut with a final, resonant clang, Julian stood alone on the sidewalk, listening to the muffled sound of a life he had thrown away. 5 years can change the skyline of a city, but it takes even longer to rebuild a man's soul. The autumn air in the park was crisp, carrying the scent of burning leaves and roast turkey. It was Thanksgiving Day, and the community food drive was in full swing. Amara stood behind a long folding table, ladling gravy over mounds of mashed potatoes. Beside her, a 5-year-old girl with bright, curious eyes stood on a crate, handing out dinner rolls with serious dedication. Clara had her mother's smile and her grandfather's sharp focus. "Mama, look," Clara whispered, tugging on Amara's apron. "That man is crying." Amara looked up. The line of volunteers was moving slowly, passing boxes of canned goods. Near the end of the chain, a man in a worn denim jacket was lifting heavy crates. His hair was graying at the temples, and his hands, once manicured for boardrooms, were rough with calluses. It was Julian. He wasn't there to be seen. He was there to work. He kept his head down, humble, stripping away the arrogance that had once defined him like a second skin. The scent of cinnamon and roast pumpkin filled the air, just like that night 5 years ago. But this time, the air was free of fear. Amara wiped her hands on a towel. She didn't feel the old sting of betrayal. She felt only a quiet peace. She crouched down to Clara. "That's your father, Clara. Why don't you go say hello?" Julian froze when he saw the little girl approaching. He dropped the crate he was holding, his hands trembling. When he looked up and met Amara's gaze across the grass, there was no plea for money or status in his eyes, only a profound, aching regret. Amara walked over slowly, standing a few feet away. "I didn't think you'd want me here," Julian said, his voice rough. I wanted to see her. From a distance." "You're helping my community," Amara said gently. "That earns you a closer look." Tears spilled over Julian's cheeks as he knelt to look at Clara. He didn't dare hug her until Clara, sensing his sadness, placed a small hand on his shoulder. Julian looked up at Amara, breaking down. "You were always the queen," he whispered, shaking his head. "I was just too blind to see the crown." Amara didn't invite him back into her life as a husband. That door was locked forever. But she reached for a paper plate and cut a generous slice of homemade pumpkin pie. She handed it to him, gesturing to the porch of the mansion visible in the distance. The house he had once tried to steal, now a home he could only visit as a guest. "Eat, Julian," she said softly. "It's Thanksgiving." Julian sat on the edge of the park bench, holding the pie like it was gold. He took a bite of the sweet, spiced filling, the same kind of food he had once let Vanessa mock. It tasted like forgiveness. He looked at the warm light glowing from the windows of the King mansion and finally understood. True wealth wasn't the deed to the house, it was the peace of the people inside it. Amara watched them from the window, smiling softly. She had not only won the war, she had won the peace.